Ron acknowledged the fact that he was well schooled, in that he attended some of the top universities in the country. And he basically told me that I'm paid to know everything. But the reality is I don't know everything. And I trust you to be the expert of your own life. And so at 16 years old, I'm like, well, that's cool. He actually values my opinion, and I can say anything about how I feel, and I'm an expert. Okay, I can work with that. So I thought that was cool that he said that, but then I put a condition. I added a condition to my willingness and to go on in the process to do the article for the Wall Street Journal. And I told him, I said, Ron, if I'm going to share my life with you, I want you to share your life with me. So I want you to meet, I want to meet your family. I want to meet your wife. I want to meet your kids. I want to meet your family as you want to meet my family. Because nothing in life is free, right? And I also told him that, I can agree to do this, but, I'm just 16 years old. I'm a minor. You still have to go through Barbara Jean Jennings. And Barbara Jean Jennings is not always, she's not always persuaded easily by especially some outsider. So I said, the best thing you could do is make plans to visit us at home. And I thought when I asked him that, when I told him to do that, I thought for sure that he wouldn't do it because I thought he'd get scared and not come to my neighborhood. So he's a bold little guy, because he came over to our apartment in Southeast DC, and I remember advising him to bring food, to come looking nice, talking your best talk. And he did that very thing. He came over, and it was just he and I and my mom. Of course, my mom was sitting at the edge of the table. It was this long, formal dining room table, and it was my mom sitting at the head of the table, and then I was sitting to my mom's right, and he was sitting to my mom's left. And I'm sitting there eating, just eating away. Ron is sitting there talking away. And my mom is sitting there listening and observing away. And my mom is such a unique woman because she is a woman of great power and of great faith. And she's one of those women that, she doesn't say much. She has a quiet strength about her. And she could enter the room and change the atmosphere of the room. She could say one word and change the conversation. And so it was just interesting because I knew as my mom was sitting there listening to Ron Suskind, she had the wheels turning in her spirit and in her mind. I knew she was thinking some heavy stuff. So, got to a point in the evening where my mom told me it was time to go to bed. I was not pleased with the fact that I had to go to bed. Not just because I was 16 years old and wasn't tired and didn't feel like I needed to be told to go to bed, but because I was afraid for Ron. Because, Ron would have been left alone. There would have been no witnesses. Anything could have happened while I was in my room fast asleep. But the conversation basically, according to my mother and Ron, went like this. The talking basically kind of ceased with Ron, and my mom said, okay, my son, he's been telling you all of these stories about us and telling you about my family and his in our church, and just been telling you a lot of different things, and at this point I really don't have much control over it. But I tell you this, I do have control over the fact that if you screw him over, I'm going to kill you. And I think that was a traumatic moment for Ron Suskind because she meant it. And so I journeyed. My journey with Ron Suskind went from there. At that time, I had applied to the MICE program, Minority Introduction to Engineering and Sciences, at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I was aspiring to be an engineer because I was enrolled in the Ballou High School Math Science Technology program. In fact, the Math Science Technology program was one of the saving graces of Ballou High School, and that was one of the good things besides the marching band and some other things that the school was known for throughout the city. And so, applying to this program was one of 1,500 applicants for this summer enrichment program. And I was chosen as one of the 50 students to be admitted. So I thought I was the stuff. I thought I had it going on, and I was just ready to go to this minority program that I was for sure was going to target, or at least that's what the flyer said, that it would target ethnic minority youth from the inner city who showed great promise in the areas of math and science and engineering. And I was excited because I knew that I was going to be among friends. I just knew I was going to be among folk that came from the same background. Till I got up to Cambridge, Massachusetts. My first time up north, right? And I got there, I was like, I'm looking for all the ghetto kids, you know, because that was what was in my 16-year-old mind. That was what I was looking for. I thought for sure, again, I was going to be among friends. I was going to be among folks that came from the same kind of background and upbringing. So I get there, and I learned quickly that because someone looks like you on the outside, doesn't mean they share the same story. I learned that. And that was a huge blow to my young mind, because I didn't know any better. And that was my first lesson in diversity, and it especially came out in classroom settings, because I quickly saw that I was miles and miles and miles behind my peers educationally. See, oftentimes when you say inner city, people often assume the worst. They often think of underachievement, undereducation. They think of all of the violence. They think of all those negative things, not realizing that you got people in the city that are functioning well, that are doing well, that, are not dealing drugs. You have people doing positive things in the inner city. So it's interesting how I even, as having grown up in that type of environment, how I fell into that frame of thinking about what the inner city is all about. How I thought that in order to be black, that meant that you struggled. That meant that you had to, at some point, maybe grew up in the projects. That meant that you were struggling to make ends meet. That meant that you were in a single-parent home where your mother was the head of the household. I thought all these things. And that program really showed me some things. I'll never forget my first exam, physics. I've always been good at math and had a high technical aptitude. And again, I thought I was the stuff. I was an A student at Ballou High School. And I learned quickly that an A at Ballou High School is not the same as an A at MIT. Took my first exam in physics. Studied for it. I don't think I actually engaged any tutors before taking this first exam, because again, I thought I was the stuff. And I had studied hard, night and day. Took the exam on Friday, thought I had done pretty decently. And I got back to class on Monday, and the teacher, before he gave the exams, the graded exams back, he went to the board and wrote the high score on the board. And he wrote the average score on the board. And he wrote the lowest score on the board. And I kind of slumped down in my seat, and I looked over at the people that were sitting next to me, and I kind of snickered, and I said, well, I feel sorry for the person who got that lowest score.